Okay. Okay, so we're recording.
Wait.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Howard, are you?
I am on with you. My video isn't working for a moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off, then come back in.
Okay.
All righty? Be right
Super.
back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Melissa to thank for getting us all together. I have lots more to learn about Zoom. So anyhow, so we're very grateful. We got this. This is teamwork, folks. So we're thrilled to have everyone here. I'm going to, first of all, it's winter solstice, which means it's the longest night of the year, and it's going to be getting brighter. And also because it's the longest night of the year, it's Debbie Wiedinghoff's anniversary. So let's all say, happy anniversary, Debbie.
Anniversary, Debbie.
Happy anniversary.
So we think that's a great time to have everyone all together. And should I just start telling you a little bit about Howard? Because he might be embarrassed when I say that he's known as the rock star of climate change. And he's the executive director and president of the Environmental Law and Policy Center. And I think they're centered in Chicago. There are several regions, but he's the executive director. He served as a counsel for the business and professional people for the public interest. And we know BPI because Merle Gross's son, Adam Gross, was our speaker in August on police accountability. So we've got lots of interconnecting things here. He's also vice chair of the Cook County Forest Preserve Foundation, who's founding chair of Illinois Citizens Utility Board, and founding chair of the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. And he teaches at Northwestern University School of Law and the University of Michigan Law School, teaching advanced seminars on energy law and climate change policy. So, and I've sent him the questions that several people asked. And I think we're just waiting for him to get back in. I think, Debbie, do you want to mention your announcements while we're waiting? Debbie? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll give an announcement, make an announcement until Debbie gets back. We're going to be, because our city salon is now nationwide, and I know I have friends from California and Massachusetts joining, and we have several other people have friends from distances too, or if you're a snowbird. So we thought City Salon, if we get back together in person, we'll go back to that. But right now we're going to be changing it to Spotlight, a National Council of Jewish Women salon. And we'll be sending you some information about that, but we're still going to be having the same programs, types of programs that really get into current events and social action issues. So we'll be sending you some information about that as well. So, and let's see where we are here.
He's not in the waiting room, is he, Beth?
I keep clicking admit all.
Here he comes. I just saw him fly by,
Okay.
maybe. There he is.
Beth, I'm pleased to join you.
Oh, glad
In
to have you.
video and with voice.
That's great. I just gave a little introduction about you. I didn't want you to blush, so I went ahead.
That's just fine. Scary thought.
The only thing we don't know, are you a Chicago boy, pardon me for, are you originally from Chicago?
I am. I live
Okay.
a mile and a half from where I was born at Weiss Memorial Hospital.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so you're local in addition to being a
I am
rock runner.
local.
Okay, that's great.
You can come home again.
Okay, that's great. I did the same thing. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you tell us where we are now. I took the test. I don't know whether anyone else took the test about how well the 6 different types of energy styles you are, and I'm alarmed, so I think that's good.
Well, I'm not sure what sort of energy style I am other than getting things done. All right. So
Super.
a little bit about climate change you asked me to talk about. Let me present a little bit, but then let's have a conversation rather than my talking at you for a while. Solving our climate change problems is the moral, it's the business, it's the economic, it's the policy, it's the technological challenge of our generation. And here we are in the Midwest, in Chicago. The Midwest states are responsible for about 25% of the CO2 pollution in our country, the most important country when it comes to solving climate change problems in the world. And to put that a little bit in global perspective, that's about 5% of the global greenhouse gases. So here in the Midwest, we're responsible for more carbon pollution than any country in the world other than Russia, Japan, China, and India. So we're the center of climate change problems in the country that's probably the most important country in the world when it comes to advancing solutions. We're also the center of solutions. You know, we are practical Midwesterners. Midwesterners are really good about getting things done. We still have the largest concentration of old coal plants anywhere in the country, here in the Midwest, but we are rapidly transitioning to clean energy. We have more than 35,000 megawatts of wind power. A megawatt basically is 1,000 homes in terms of power. So we have 1,000 megawatts or 35,000 megawatts. Solar energy plus storage are dropping in price, and they're rapidly escalating in the energy market. Think about a few years ago when we all had landline phones. And then probably the cool people you knew or some business people or people who were real techie, they got a Motorola flip-top phone. Remember those? They didn't send emails. They didn't do text messages. They didn't do all the things that we do with the smartphones that we have. They were good enough to, if you pulled up the antenna, you could make a phone call. And sometimes you would have good connections, and sometimes we would all drop calls. Today, 90% or more of households, people have cell phones. And they're smartphones that are a lot better than those old Motorola flip-top phones. And only about 25% of people have landlines, and that's going down by a lot. In 20 years, the market has radically shifted. And if I said to any of my kids, hey, I got this great deal for you on a 2G or 3G cell phone, they'd laugh at me. You know, they're already, you know, like get 5G, you know, and they'll want to know when 6G is available. The pace of technological change that we've seen in telecommunications is happening just as fast in the electricity world. Solar plus energy storage is rapidly accelerating as the technology improves, the price comes down, and it will transform the electricity sector as much as wireless has done to telecommunications and the ways that we live, the ways we work. I mean, today, almost all of us have smartphones. It's a world of difference than it was 20 years ago, how we do things, even how we take photographs. or how we communicate via Zoom. You know, if 15 years ago I had said, yeah, I'll see you on a Zoom meeting tonight, we would have been out there. You know, this stuff keeps getting better. We are also the center of the nation's transportation system. And why am I talking about energy and transportation when it comes to climate change? Because the electricity sector and the transportation sector are responsible for 70 to 75% of the greenhouse gases in the United States. So you all know who Willie Sutton was. He was a bank robber. Willie Sutton was asked why did he rob banks? His famous answer was, because that's where the money is. Well, if you want to deal with climate change here in the Midwest in the United States, you have to go where the pollution is. It's the electricity and the transportation sector. And it used to be that electricity was the largest. Today, transportation is even more. So think about the Midwest where we live. We're the center of the highways. We're the center of freight rail. O'Hare is the center of aviation when the planes are back up and running and people are taking them. We're the crossroads of America. We're also the manufacturing center of America when it comes to the auto industry and the truck industry and RVs in Elkhart, Indiana. So when it comes to modernizing and making our vehicles far more efficient, the Midwest is the center of where we need to do it. So that's a little bit about what we're responsible for, but the opportunity we have to make a difference. And in the United States, things get done, as we all know, both at the federal level and the state level. And for the last 4 years, we've had a federal administration that's been moving us backwards. President Trump came into office. He had a chance to be a climate leader. Instead, he began his administration by saying, I don't believe in climate science, which is like saying, I don't believe in science, period. Then he said, excuse me, he said, we're going to wipe out climate change action and even stuff on websites from the federal government. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, Mother Nature didn't take a pause. It's not like while Trump was doing his thing of rolling back 100 environmental laws and standards and so forth, regulations and standards, that climate change sort of took a pause and said, well, let's wait and see if a new administration comes into office. In the same way that we probably missed an absolutely vital 2, 3, maybe 4 months with the current administration effectively dealing with COVID-19. And as a result, literally hundreds of thousands of people will unnecessarily die. When it comes to climate change, we're 4 years behind where we should be right now. Now, the states have stepped up, and there are things happening in the states, and there are things happening in the power markets. Even though the Trump administration said we're not going to do anything on climate change, it's not like people in the national labs weren't trying to make solar panels more efficient. And in the private sector, solar panels, the technology is getting better. In the same way that cell phones went from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G and now to 5G, we're seeing the same thing happen with solar panels become 1 to 2% more efficient every year in converting sunlight into electricity. Solar storage, energy storage, batteries getting much better. Electric vehicles, heck, 3 years ago, if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, your choice was really one of 3 in America. Chevy Volt, which has a range of about 35 miles per charge. Nissan is manufacturing a car that has maybe a little bit more. And Tesla was manufacturing its Roadster, very expensive, very cool car, but not the sort of car that most people are going to plop down $90,000 to $100,000 for and drive around the neighborhood in Chicago. Today, almost all the major automakers are accelerating into electric vehicles. Batteries are getting better. GM has come out with the Bolt, and Mary Barra, their CEO, has said electric vehicles are their future. Ford is saying we're going to be better than GM at electric vehicles. Tesla is booming. If you bought Tesla stock a year ago, make a larger contribution in appreciated stock to the National Conference of Jewish Women before the end of the year and get yourself a nice write-off. You've done very, very, very well. Yeah, and we're seeing the market move. It's going to be slow. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we're going to see more CTA buses that are electric. We're going to see school buses that are electric buses. You know, and one advantage of that is that kids won't be exposed to as much diesel fumes while they're on school buses. Helps kids' health, helps bus drivers' health. You know, it's good for everybody. So we really are at an opportunity, you know, to transform the transportation, the electricity market at the state level. And that's all really been happening in California. Yeah, lots of stuff happens in California, but it's been happening here too. Who'd have thought, if I had said to you 10 years ago, Illinois will be number 5 or 6 in the country in terms of wind power development. I mean, we're not exactly known for it. Illinois is number 5 or number 6 in the country in the amount of wind power development. Iowa's number 3. Minnesota's a leader. Moving forward in Michigan. The wind blows in the Midwest and it goes from the rural areas to supply power to the urban areas where there's a lot of demand and load. We need to be smart about energy efficiency. Best, fastest, cheapest way for us to help solve our climate change problems. And the thing about energy efficiency is it works, it's relatively easy, and it saves people and businesses money. I mean, in terms of how easy is it to do energy efficiency, you know, the number one saving for all of you in your homes, let alone businesses, is to use LED bulbs. LED bulbs compared to incandescent bulbs are 90 to 95% more efficient. They last longer, which means you have to change them less. You save money. And I think most of us have the technological ability to unscrew an incandescent bulb and screw in an LED bulb. And again, 5 years, 8 years ago, if you wanted an LED bulb, they probably cost 15, 18 bucks, and they were sort of on the back shelf over at Ace Hardware. Today, that's pretty much all you see. And just the switch to LEDs tends to reduce electricity demand across the Chicago region by about 3%. That's a lot of carbon savings. You know, and you look at then what happens with commercial office buildings and businesses focused on their bottom line. More efficient pumps and motors, more efficient air conditioners, refrigerators. If you buy a new refrigerator today, any refrigerator you buy will be more energy efficient than the one you're replacing. It's not just, hey, Howard, you're green environmentalist, you're going and you're buying the super duper efficient refrigerator. Virtually any refrigerator that you were to buy at Best Buy, Apt, wherever you go, will be much more energy efficient than the one you're replacing. You'd have no reason to know this, but in terms of people's homes, the number one electricity use is air conditioning. Except if you're in a lakeshore high-rise building that's all electric, it might be heating at night. But for most people, number one is air conditioning. Number two is refrigeration. Simply put, your refrigerator runs 24/7. Refrigerators tend to turn over on average every 10 to 11 years. So that means there's about 10% of the refrigerators that are turning over every year. And what's coming in is much more energy efficient. Lighting, we just talked about. So virtually every appliance you buy has a little sticker that says Energy Star and so forth. It's more efficient. So energy efficiency, best, fastest, cheapest solution to climate change, saves people and businesses money on their bills, keeps money in the local community, creates jobs. I mean, it's a win-win-win. So we're seeing that happen, not just in California, but here in Illinois, other places in the Midwest. And now we have a big change. The Biden administration coming in is a breath of fresh air when it comes to seriousness about climate change solutions. Lord knows what we would have done on climate change had President Trump been reelected and had another 4 years to do nothing or worse. President-elect Biden has appointed a team, a climate team he's announced the last few days. I know some of these folks. They are talented, dedicated, smart. And the president has said he has 4 priorities: COVID-19, climate change, systemic racism, and the economy. So he's bringing in a team of people who are dedicated and very good, including folks like Gina McCarthy, John Kerry, Jennifer Granholm at Department of Energy, Michael Reagan at EPA, Tom Vilsack at the Department of Agriculture, Brenda Mallory over at the Council on Environmental Quality. These are really talented, good people, and he's given them a mission, which is, let's get the whole federal government, not just EPA, not just the Department of Energy. Let's look at the Department of Agriculture and the other agencies, Department of Transportation, where Pete Buttigieg is going in, and they're going to be very bullish. And the idea is to channel the whole federal government to focus on climate solutions. So day one, President-elect Biden has said he'll put the United States back in the Paris Climate Accord. We are literally the only one of 100 and I think it's 87 nations that are not part of the Paris Climate Accord. For the United States to be a global leader, how in the heck can we not do that? He'll do it day one. More fundamentally, it will be a lot of not one single magic bullet, but different agencies combining their resources to really focus and do what needs to be done to help solve our climate change problems, which is the moral, the business, the economic, the political, the policy, the technological challenge of our generation. So I'm pretty excited right now. This would have been a very different talk had things played out differently over the last month and a half, but it's a breath of fresh air with the Biden administration. And we will be working very closely with the people he's bringing in to help them succeed. There's a press release that's going to be sent out this evening or tomorrow morning, the statement of 25 environmental CEOs, and I'm proud to be a part of that. So hopefully that brings you up to speed some, and I can fill in the blanks. I can talk a little more about particular things you're interested in and address your questions and suggestions rather than talk at you, right? So thank you for letting me join you, and fire away.
Thank you. That's wonderfully encouraging. This is great. Thank you. We had some questions people submitted, so I'm going to type those in. I sent them to you, but let me type the first one in here from
All right,
Barbara
I'll open the
Turner.
chat.
Yeah.
Hello, Barbara Turner. What you don't know is that Barbara Turner is my cousin, so that's a ringer.
Hi, Howard.
Hey, Barbara.
Good to see you.
I have to, there you go. Okay.
Are some types of clean energy more cost effective and practical? Yeah, energy efficiency, best, fastest, cheapest. You heard it from me. In terms of wind power, it's locational. So first of all, you're not going to put a wind turbine in the middle of the north side of Chicago or the middle of the south side of Chicago. On the other hand, we have large open areas in the Midwest with farmland that has thousands of acres where you can put a big wind turbine up, produce electricity, and it's good for the farmer's income, leases land. You can still do corn and soy around it. It's good for the local schools and everybody who get property tax revenues from it. And it's good in terms of clean energy. Solar works during the day, wind runs mostly at night. I wish we had solar panels on our home in Edgewater. We don't, because we got a bunch of really big maple and elm trees around it. Our roof is just a house built in 1906, and it's not designed for solar panels. We own some land up in Wisconsin. We have 48 solar panels on the land. So for solar, you got to put it in a place where there's good access to the sun. Players for wind power, for solar power. So hopefully, Barbara, that answers what you were asking. I'm just trying to scroll back. What do I think of Michael Reagan for the EPA director? I don't know him very well. I know Gina McCarthy. I think she'll be absolutely terrific. Secretary Kerry will be terrific. Governor Granholm is just super. I just don't know Mr. Reagan at all. He was for those of you who don't know, he was the head of the state EPA in North Carolina, or I guess he still is the head of the EPA, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And I just don't do a lot of work in North Carolina where I've come across him.
I have a question from Joan Fragan.
Okay.
I'd be interested in hearing updates about what is currently being done in other countries, especially Germany, where they already have been far ahead of us.
Every country is doing things differently because, again, it sort of depends what I said before, location. So Denmark, adjacent to the North Sea. The North Sea is very shallow. I think Denmark gets about 40, maybe 50% of its energy from wind power. Germany is sort of interesting. Northern Germany, Hamburg and such, that's on the North Sea, gets a lot of wind power. The southern part of Germany is aggressively developing solar power. And in between the Ruhr Valley, there's still a fair amount of coal. A number of the nuclear plants have shut down. One of the reasons they shut down was that when East and West Germany were unified, the plants tended to be much more in East Germany, and a number of them were old Soviet designs like the Chernobyl plant. So for safety and other reasons, a number of the nuclear plants were shut down under the Merkel government. They're aggressively developing both solar and wind, but it's as if all the wind were in the upper Midwest and the solar were all in Louisiana and Alabama, southern Germany. A lot of work in Germany on electric vehicles, as you know, major vehicle manufacturers in Germany, BMW, other automakers, they're really moving very heavily into both diesel electric and to electric vehicles. Very heavy auto manufacturing, as I think some of you know, in Germany.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to jump ahead here and put my question, then we'll go back to the other ones. This is a family issue. My son's family leaves lights on. I follow and shut him off, and he says, "Oh, mother," the same tone of voice that's been going on since caveman time. Does it really save money to shut them off? And does it help prevent climate change? I guess is the more.
Sure it does.
Okay.
If your lights are on, then you are using electricity.
Okay.
And if you're paying for electricity, it's costing you money. And if they're running and using electricity, we're generating that electricity somewhere, and coal is still part of the generation here in Illinois and around the Midwest. So it's more pollution. So wholly apart from climate change, I get the idea of leaving a safety light on. All right, maybe you leave your back door light on or something for safety. Be sure to put an LED in there. It uses less electricity.
Okay.
But to leave a bunch of lights on around the house, and why waste money and create more pollution?
Okay.
Different people have different safety concerns. And, I don't want to tell somebody, if you're worried about tripping and falling somewhere, you shouldn't leave a light on. But use a lower wattage bulb, make sure it's an LED so that you're not, if you have a bulb that's going to be on all the time, use an LED. I remember when one of my sons, when he was young, absolutely wanted the light left on in the closet in his bedroom. He just did. So we said, fine, all right. I'm not going to argue about that. You know, we put then a compact fluorescent there, which is far more, you know, efficient than an incandescent bulb. And we had it on a timer so that it was during the night, but not running during the day.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That helps. What can we do to be proactive?
Well, first of all, we're lucky here in Illinois. We have 2 senators who are leaders on climate change. We have a governor who's saying the right things. He needs to do a little bit more. We have a mayor who says the right things, needs to do a little bit more and get moving. We have a congressional delegation of people like Jan Schakowsky, Mike Quigley, Bill Foster, Sean Casten, Robin Kelly, Danny Davis, Bobby Rush, Brad Snyder. These are people who are leaders on climate change. So unlike if you live somewhere else and maybe you have somebody who's good, like in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin and Ron Johnson, who isn't, you know, it's hard to say to you, you've got to send a letter to Senator so-and-so and say, please support something. But first of all, it is always good when elected officials hear from you. Dick Durbin, Tammy Duckworth absolutely know that climate change is important. They're leaders, they don't need to be persuaded, but they hear from their constituents on lots of issues. Let them hear from you when you communicate with them. Secondly, if you're city residents, I have a lot of respect for Mayor Lightfoot. I know her, I like her. I don't think she views climate change as being one of her top 3 or 4 issues. And I'm not saying that critically. Every elected official has his set of priorities. And for certain members, like say Sean Casten, if you ask Sean Casten, some of you may know him, representative in DuPage County, you know, Sean would almost tell you his leading issues are climate change, and climate change. The mayor, it isn't. And she really does need to hear from us and say, look, the city of Chicago, the 3rd largest city in Chicago, needs to step up and act. And they're doing a number of hearings and listening sessions over the next 2 to 3 years. They need to step up now. And I'm not expecting to make it into the mayor's top issue. She's entitled to, you know, having been elected in 50 wards, she's got a lot of issues. She's got budget issues, finance issues, issues of race in the city, issues of economic development, keeping the CTA running, which is in part a climate change issue. But we could get a little more help from her and move it up, if you will, on her priority list to be a leader on climate change. And hopefully with the new Biden administration that is emphasizing climate solutions, the mayor and the city council will want to move more into a leadership position.
Okay, thank you. And a couple of times I've called senators and reps to say thank you, and they say, what? You know, so
Yeah.
it still doesn't hurt to do it. We want that.
Everybody likes being thanked for the good things they do.
Exactly. Okay. Kim Sterling said, can you comment on community solar farms?
Yeah, first of all, let's see if everybody knows what a community solar farm is before I get too far ahead, because we're really involved with it. I'm seeing a lot of heads go, what are you talking about? Everybody know what a community garden is? All right. Think community garden, think community solar garden. Okay. So let's say you live in an apartment building or you live in a home like I do, and there are a bunch of leafy trees over it. You just don't have a good site for a solar panel. Or you're in an apartment building and the apartment building is shaded by 2 buildings next to it, and you're not going to put solar on the roof. Same way, you're also not, if you live in an apartment building, easily going to have your backyard to do a garden. So what people do is come together, they find an open place, they make a community garden, and everybody gets a place and everybody shares. Same theory on solar. You find a good place to do solar development and people buy shares. So let's say that there are 100 people who want to be powered by solar. You can figure out how much electricity you're using and how big of a solar system you'd need to offset that electricity. And people buy shares of it in the same way, if you will, that you do with a community garden. Sometimes this is called distributed solar. The idea is to not have solar be just somewhere in rural Illinois, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 panels, 1,000,000 panels, but to have opportunities to take some of the brownfields, the empty lots, the vacant areas in cities like Chicago, use them to develop solar, create jobs, clean energy, put properties back on the tax base, and enable people to be using solar power for their electricity, even if their own building isn't well situated to do it. As I mentioned my house, apart from the fact that we have a bunch of leafy trees over the roof is pitched east and west, not north and south. Well, it was built in 1906. And even going to the south, there's a 4.5-story apartment building immediately south of us. Bottom line, it's just not a good site for solar. But my wife, Lauren, and I have said, look, if somebody does a good community solar project, we'll participate in it. And that's a way of solving a problem and creating an opportunity.
Great. I'm learning something new too. This is great.
Good.
So, yeah. Jill Lexier's question is, what about the Green New Deal proponents? Will they be happy with Biden's agenda and what's missing?
No, they're not going to be happy with Biden's agenda. Look, we had a Democratic primary, and in the primary, there was no secret that Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg were running as, if you will, moderate to liberal Democrats. And people like Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, were running as much more progressive or leftist Democrats. And out of that primary process, Joe Biden was the nominee, and he won for president. And I think the progressive side of the Democratic Party that has been pushing the Green New Deal is going to push Biden to do more, and that's good. But I don't think that President Biden buys into everything in the Green New Deal. And you're going to see a push-pull in the Democratic Party, in the Senate, in the House, between those who think they can go pretty far and those who want to go very far. And then the reality will be, how far can they actually go if there's a Republican Senate, even by a vote or two, or even if Democrats win both seats in Georgia. I mean, keep in mind, there are a whole lot of Democratic senators that are not exactly, the strongest environmentalists. Senator Manchin, a very decent man, comes from West Virginia, coal country, and he's just not going to be a leader on climate change issues. Who's kidding who? Senator John Tester from Montana, same thing, it's a coal state. So it doesn't sort of cut completely as, well, if there are 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans, and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris casts the deciding vote for the Democrats to control the Senate, whoa, everything's going to just roll right through. Things are going to be hard. We live in a divided country. We're divided by politics, by policy, by race, by geography, urban and rural. And Congress is like that too. So look to President-elect Biden to do a lot through the administrative agencies, through executive orders, with John Kerry and Gina McCarthy in the White House. There's a lot they can move forward on the global front, on international, that's Secretary Kerry, and on the domestic side with Gina McCarthy. There's a lot the federal government in the agency side can do. For those who strongly back the Green New Deal, which in some ways is more a set of principles than it is all operationalized. Some of that will happen and some of it won't. And we're going to see overall how much President-elect Biden is able to move through Congress. Keep in mind that Speaker Pelosi, very strong on climate change, but the Democratic majority, as you know, in the House is the thinnest majority either party has had, I think, for, I'm going to say 20 years, maybe more. So it's not going to be easy to move big new climate change or other big new initiatives through Congress.
Okay, thank you. Julie Newman says your talk is so much more hopeful and optimistic than the New Yorker article that Merle sent the week out. It was from 2009, but not much has changed. It seems that legislation in this area is extremely difficult to execute. Do you believe, as mentioned in the article, that the White House limitations placed on, and she says, I'm forgetting the term used in the article, something like limitations, placed on coal other than and other fossil fuels will be effective in the United States? Again,
well, first of all, look what's happening with coal. I mean, virtually almost every major coal mining company in the United States, you know, all the big ones, Peabody, Arch, etc., they've all gone bankrupt. Coal plants are shutting down because they're not economic. The fact of the matter is, you know, Vistra, which owns all the coal plants in central and southern Illinois, or almost all of them, has said they're going to be shutting them all down. It's because they're not making money. Solar plus storage, wind, natural gas, energy efficiency, nuclear are all cheaper to operate and run than coal. So coal plants are closing up. That's happening. President Trump came in and he said, I'm going to save coal. While President Trump has been president, the coal mining companies, Murray Energy, Peabody, Arch, they're all going bankrupt. And the coal plants are shutting down. And it's just because they're not economic. So utilities aren't buying the power, and companies that have choices are making economic choices to invest in more cost-effective technology. And that's combined with what's happening with banks and other financial institutions saying they're going to pull out from coal. On the oil side, the other, you know, biggest fossil fuel, if you will, and natural gas, oil prices are staying low. And they're staying low because cars are getting more efficient. Trucks are getting more efficient. There's a move toward electrification of vehicles. There's just less demand for oil. So we have a long way to go. But it's, you know, I don't know anybody who's seriously forecasting that there are going to be new coal plants built in the United States. There's no CEO who would go to his or her board of directors right now at a utility and say, I want to invest $1 billion building a coal plant. It just won't happen. The numbers don't work. Ditto on new nuclear plants for now.
Right. That's encouraging. So thank you. Merle Gross has said, I think climate change with, I link climate change with declining air purity. Should we ban the mining of soft coal, or should we have to invest in scrubbers so the coal can be used? I think you partially addressed that, but
yeah. All right, I'm going to get a little technical here. There are basically two types of coal. There are actually three types of coal. This is a thermal coal, the coal that's used at power plants. There's a type of coal that's used for making steel. There's a different coal that's called thermal coal that's used for burning in coal plants. And there's high sulfur coal, which is basically the type of coal that's in the Midwest, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. And then there's lower sulfur coal that's in Wyoming, what's called the Powder River Basin. 20 years ago, the debate was, should utilities switch from burning local coal in the Midwest, high sulfur coal, to burning low sulfur coal to reduce sulfur SO2 emissions, sulfur dioxide, which causes acid rain, nitrogen oxides that causes smog. And a number of companies, including most of the power plants in the Chicago area, switched to lower sulfur coal. But when it comes to greenhouse gases, when it comes to CO2, it doesn't matter. Same amount of CO2 from both of them. But the fundamentals are, the coal mining companies are going bankrupt because so much less coal is being burned. And that's because the coal plants are getting outcompeted by natural gas and by wind and by solar and by energy efficiency. It's economics and natural gas, nuclear, wind, solar, energy efficiency. So as long as you have coal being priced above market, there's very little President Trump was able to do to switch that. And that market is really pretty much working right now. We're going to have less coal plants. Within 5 years or so, there will be very, very few coal plants still running in Illinois, unless things change radically. Again, think to the landline phone analogy. If we had been here 20 years ago and I had said, you know what, these newfangled flip-top phones, they're going to be so much better. You won't believe it. They're going to be really fast. You can take photos with them. You can send emails. Everybody's going to have one in their pocket or their purse or their bag. And it's going to be able to do text messages and all this cool stuff. And it's going to operate like this. And you can send a photograph to your family member in California in a snap. It'll be like a mini computer, and it won't weigh much, and it looks like this. And most of you won't have landline phones. And you would probably have said, well, that's pretty forward-looking, Howard. That's pretty ambitious. That's the world we've seen. It's happened. We've all watched that happen in telecommunications. And we're in the middle of watching that happen right now. The electricity sector is just fundamentally transforming. And there's nobody who's investing in coal mine company stocks right now with any sense that they're going to be booming in the future. They're going bankrupt. Peabody, the largest coal company in the US, the largest private coal company in the world, went bankrupt once 3-4 years ago, and it's going bankrupt again. Arch was number 2, same thing. Murray Energy, same thing. And they're going bankrupt because the numbers don't work.
Okay. Merle, thank you. That's encouraging for clean energy. Merle has also asked, what about the tipping point? Which makes me think there was and is merit to Henny Penny's concern. And the good introduction. How threatened are we by rising waters, rising temperatures, and declining land mass?
All of the above. I mean,
okay.
Look at what's happening with Lake Michigan that we're seeing. The scientists are telling us that what we are seeing due to climate change is much more extreme weather events. Changing water levels, sometimes much higher, occasionally lower. We've all seen that on Lake Michigan. More extreme tornadoes, hurricanes, derechos in Iowa. This is the new weather reality. We're seeing it happen. I mean, I wish it weren't so, but it's happening. And the difficulty is this one is really hard for us to change alone. We can't. From a climate perspective, from the atmosphere, it doesn't matter whether carbon dioxide molecules come from Indiana or India or Indonesia. It has the same effect on the atmosphere. So in the same way with regard to COVID, we're all in this together. when it comes to solving global climate change problems, we're all in this together. One of the opportunities for the United States of getting back involved, getting re-engaged in Paris in the climate accord, is that we have an opportunity as developing nations are looking to reduce their CO2. We produce the technologies that can help solve their problems. We're manufacturing efficient cars. Let's get them out there. Let's be leaders. We're manufacturing all sorts of efficient technologies, pumps and motors. Let's get them out there around the world for people to use and benefit from. It's an export market for us. That's good. It creates jobs, economic growth, and it helps solve problems, not just in Indonesia, but in Indiana as well.
Okay.
Act globally and act locally.
Okay. Merle says, I opted to use Clear Energy or some clean energy company, and Commonwealth Edison bills a great deal more per kilowatt hour, but I am naive to think that I'm doing something positive to help climate change. I think the question relates to where we get our energy, our household Commonwealth Edison bill. Does it make a difference who our supplier is? I think that's the question.
Yeah, it makes a difference where the electricity is coming from. Look, there are a whole bunch of competing suppliers right now, and I've frankly lost track of them. They change their names, and you know, one day they're called something, then they're called something else, and one company acquires another. Some of them are really legitimate actors, and they're doing good things, and they're offering different choices to consumers. And some of them are a little bit on the edge. Steve Daniels, who's the energy columnist for Crane Chicago Business, has written a number of articles about some of the companies that at least he views as being less appropriate actors. Let's just put it that way, okay? So, you know, over time, I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to choose. We're going to be able to choose from a bunch of, you know, go back to telecom, okay? I'll just go back to the telephone industry. I will bet if we surveyed you, some of you would have an AT&T phone, some of you would use wireless through Sprint, I guess it's merging now. Some would be T-Mobile, some would be Verizon. Some might be US Cellular, and there are probably a couple others. And you have a choice. And they offer different packages, and they have friends and family plans, and if all your kids are using Verizon, you probably are too because of the friends and family rate. In a different pre-COVID world, if you travel in Europe a lot, T-Mobile tends to work better there than some of the other services. A friend of mine who does a lot of international travel swears by T-Mobile. I think it's owned by Deutsche Telekom, so it tends to work very well on the continent. But you have a choice, and they're pitching you for offers the same way you have a choice with cable TV. I hope we're going to see, as the market shakes out, some much better choices for people. So it's not ComEd or some company you don't really know, but you're going to have choices, not 200 choices, but like in the wireless telecom, there are 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 providers, and that competition is good. It holds down rates, and it gives people good opportunities.
Super, thank you. Comment from Judith Maisel. The irony of the moment is that the pandemic is not as devastating when in an outdoor environment, pollution and all. So it's interesting.
Well, I mean, there, you know, if you want to find silver linings under any dark cloud, the fact of the matter is, with the economy being in the shape it is right now, you know, there's a certain amount of businesses that are shut down and so forth. There are less people driving and less trucks, and well, there are probably more trucks. But overall, there's less pollution, and there, you know, all those pictures of Los Angeles and other places that used to look really polluted and now look a little bit less polluted.
Right. So, silver lining, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Now we're at like 7:58. We've got It says 15 more questions. I don't, some of them have been answered.
Can we do the
Um,
rapid like speed dating round or something?
Okay.
Yeah, Beth, you're
um,
moderating. Fire away, and I'll try to do really quick answers. How's that?
Okay. Okay.
And greetings
What
to
about,
Nina Human, who I haven't seen in 500 years.
okay.
How are you?
What about
I was
wind
looking at this
turbine?
like, okay. It's been a while.
Nice to see you, Howard.
Good to see you.
We'll talk offline maybe.
Deal, you're on.
Oh, what about wind turbines in Lake Michigan?
You know, a lot of talk. I don't think it's going to happen much. And the reasons are, it's about 3 times more expensive to do offshore wind in the lake than it is to do it on land.
Okay.
And to build them, you have to go a ways out. And as we all know, the oceans are salt. They don't freeze as much. Lake Michigan freezes. I think you're going to see some experimental R&D projects, but I think it's going to be a long time before you have lots of wind turbines in Lake Michigan.
Okay. I'm going to, let's see, we have a question about clean energy, and Stacy attended the Hub webinar that, clean providers, I think, are no better than ComEd. And I think you addressed that. It depends on the supplier.
Some of them are good, some aren't. I'm not the Better Business Bureau.
Okay. Jill Lexier says, what about the health of the Great Lakes? What's the biggest threat to the Great Lakes?
Hey, some great news for the Great Lakes. The Senate just passed increased funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. This is the big Obama era program. President Trump tried to zero it out. We fought back, bipartisan support. Money got restored, $300 million every year to do work restoring the Great Lakes, keep Asian carp out of the lake, deal with toxic algae blooms, wetlands restoration, clean up some toxic sites, and so forth. Congress now has put $375 million in this fiscal year and ramping up to $475 million between now and fiscal year 2026, moving up $25 million a year. That's great news. Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, Senator Stabenow of Michigan, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, Senator Portman, Republican of Ohio, has been very supportive. It's really been bipartisan. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to the Great Lakes, it's where we live, work, and play. And, it's people love the Great Lakes. It's not, I was going to say it's bipartisan, it's nonpartisan.
Okay. And my own note, follow Howard on Twitter. He's always letting people know about things like this, because
Follow me on Twitter, Howard ELPC, at
Right.
Howard, Edward, Larry, Peter, Charlie, ELPC, Environmental Law and Policy Center. Lots of good information. We try to keep it coming.
Okay. Is household recycling effective?
In Chicago, it hasn't been working. It just hasn't been.
Okay.
And that's not a blaming Mayor Lightfoot. It didn't work well from Mayor Emanuel, Mayor Daley. There are other cities that have really cracked the recycling code and are making it work well. We're behind on that. We just are.
Okay.
We got to do better.
Should we be concerned with the current makeup of the Supreme Court?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me what issue you're concerned about. Look, the Supreme Court is the most right-wing ideological turn that it's taken since the 1930s, when FDR's famous attempt to add justices to the court led to the switch in time, save 9, as the court sort of moved off some of its less ideological places. I teach at 2 law schools. I teach at Michigan and I teach at Northwestern, and actually practice law and write legal briefs and do that stuff. I teach environmental constitutionalism at Michigan and Northwestern. This is a court that is extraordinarily ideological, and it's a court that's going to create great problems in terms of the environment, civil liberties, immigration, a number of the issues that National Council of Jewish Women and people who tend to be environmentalists and more progressive care deeply about. Chief Justice Roberts is a principled, extraordinarily smart Chief Justice. He's also very conservative. And the notion that he's currently probably the sixth most conservative justice right now gives you some idea of how the court has radically shifted with the Trump appointments. I'll digress only because it's a little bit of fun. I was law school classmates with John Roberts, and the first semester, 500 and something first-year students thrown in together. The Midwesterners would eat together over dinner. The Southerners would eat together. Chief Justice Roberts was from South Bend, Indiana. He graduated from, Notre Dame background. Richard Lazarus, who's a very prominent environmental law professor, was his roommate. Richie Lazarus grew up in Champaign, Illinois. So the Midwestern folks would get together. And I remember a friend of mine at the time calling me and saying, how are you doing? Are you, doing all right in terms of keeping up? And I said, yeah, I'm doing a lot of really smart people here. I'm doing all right. There are a couple of folks who are just smarter than I am. One of them was John Roberts. He's done pretty well. But, even then, he extraordinarily gracious, nice person, extremely smart, very conservative. But he's probably now the number 6 in terms of conservative philosophy on the Supreme Court. And for people who care about the sort of social and economic values and justice values that we do, that's really a pretty scary proposition.
Okay. Oh.
Not the chief per se, the others.
And many of us attended the Courts Matter programs that
Right.
Carol Levine started. And I know many of us heard you speak that. And that's very scary. Yeah.
It is.
I think this is our last question.
All right, we'll hit it out of the park for you, okay? Then we'll wrap up.
Okay. What changes need to be made to improve recycling in the Chicago area?
That one I'm going to duck and just say I honestly don't know. I mean, it's pretty clear that recycling isn't working. And one of the things we've done at the Environmental Law and Policy Center, and I'm sure most groups do this, and we have on a whiteboard when we're all in the office those issues that a number of us think are important, that right now it's not on our docket, but it's something we really think we ought to take a look at. And literally sitting on the whiteboard is something that says Chicago recycling ? Now we haven't been in the office for, since March. But the answer is I really don't know. And it's one that some set of environmental groups in Chicago really need to dig into and not just figure out what's wrong, but what's right and how do we solve it? How do we work with the mayor to make it work better?
Okay. Are there cities that do a good job with recycling?
Yeah, they're really, if you look at the recycling rates in the major cities around the country, and that's just sort of a good indicator, you can see who's doing well and who isn't.
Okay.
And you can't just say, well, because Seattle does this, you can just slap it down in Chicago and make it work. But we really ought to be able to do much better than we are. And folks need to take a serious look at what isn't working and what could work much better, how to solve it.
Okay. Okay. I think some more questions about recycling. I think we'll
All right.
take a look at that too, suburbs compared to the city. We want everyone to stay on because Debbie has a few announcements. This is enlightening. Thank you. And I think we've answered all the basic questions, and we're going to start writing letters thanking Durbin and Duckworth and our Congress people. I watched your program with Sean Caston and the other
Yeah.
representatives. Yeah, so that was very good. And we'll just keep writing and doing what we can. So
Good to join you.
for-
Hey, stay healthy and be well, okay?
thank you. You too. Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
You're on.
Okay. Folks, stay on with a few more minutes. Great. Thanks again. Debbie?
Okay, I'm going to make this fast because it's getting late. I'm going to try to share my screen, and if that works, we're in good shape. Okay, I'm going to start with, if you can't get enough of NCJW and you want to get more involved, you can either email me at presidents@ncjwcns.org. If you're interested in joining the board, or you think you know someone who might be a great board member, we have NCJW nominating at ncjwcns.org, another email. And then, as always, and it's the end of the year, and I like to make a plug. If you haven't done all your end of year giving yet, you can always donate to us so we can continue having great programming like this. And next, I just want to show you what is coming up in January. We have Unpack the Challenge, which is on January 6th at 7 p.m. That is it's the culminating, we're going to talk about I always forget the name of it. The 18-week challenge, Anti-Racism is a Verb, which has been going on for 18 weeks. And there's been podcasts and videos. You can still find all of those on our website. But we're going to talk about everything in general and see where we go next on racial justice on January 6th. January 14th is Sex Trafficking, Facts and Fiction. It's part of our Jewish community against sex trafficking. And then on January 20th, it's the Suburban Salon, and it's Mending Relationships Across the Political Divide. And I liked their little tag, so I'm going to read it. Unblocking friends and family who disagree with my politics. My New Year's resolution is to rebuild relationships. And so that's what they're going to be talking about. So I thought so that comes up on January 20th. January 25th is Housing 101, Fair Housing and Affordable Housing. And I think Beth might talk more about that in a moment. And you can register for all these events at ncjwcns.org/events/. So that's everything that's coming up in January. So I hope to see everyone at other events. And again, just contact me. I'm happy to talk with anyone who's interested in getting more involved in our section. So thanks. And thank you, Beth. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, for the next Spotlight, because we're changing our name from City Salon to Spotlight of National Council of Jewish Women Salon. And the first one of 2021 will be about housing. And Rebecca Janowitz has been working in the city for many years, and one of her major areas of expertise is getting housing and how it's working and how it's not working. So we'll have a lot of questions, review with starting what happened with Getro. And so I have to do some background check on that. So it'll be very interesting, and just asking her what could she talk about was sort of eye-opening to me. So I think it'll be another great discussion. And I think that's it. So you'll be looking for new heading for us and continued great programming.
Thanks
So
for a
got
great
some real
night,
exciting.
Beth. It was terrific. It was a great program.
Thanks to
Beth.
everyone.
Thanks, Beth.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to Carol Levine for making it easy for me to call up Howard and say, can you talk with us? He said, sure, for NCJW, sure.
Yeah.
So thank you all so much. Happy New Year. And we'll see you all in January.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
And I think he's related to everyone, right? Which is great.
The 7 degrees of separation,
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
maybe only 5. Thanks, Beth.
Exactly. Thank you all. I'm going to wait until everyone signs off and then I'm going to.
Yeah,
Turn
I
off the
could
record.
not connect because there was something wrong with our router. And my granddaughters had joined and then they couldn't find me. And so they
Oh.
left.
Oh, I think Molly
Molly
was
was
on.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be able to send her the recording.
Okay, the link. It might not be available until next week when Melissa gets back, but it will be available.
Okay, whenever.
Hi, Marty. Hi, Mary. Hi, Harriet. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's terrific.
I don't know how to leave that one.
Thanks, Joan, for asking good questions too. Hello again, Jill.
Hi, great job. That was really good.
Yeah. Oh, I knew that he'd be
Yeah.
terrific.
very,
So
very
I'm just thrilled. Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's optimistic and
Yes.
which is great.
That was.
It's like, oh yeah, we can help with this.
Yeah, that was very exciting. Yeah. And
Yeah. So
Debbie's support and comments. So that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good job.
I was a
So-
little panicked at first because I wasn't host and
Well, that was a problem because, and then I'm worried about the policy committee meeting tomorrow because Melissa had given me the information to sign
Oh.
in, but I still couldn't do it. And so I don't know how I'm going to manage the meeting tomorrow. I think she's gonna, well, she's gonna have to help me again. Because I had the log, she had given me the login and password because she was gonna be gone, but I could not get it to sign in. And I don't know if it's because Neil has an account and it kept wanting, like his
Oh, it's
account
okay.
kept overriding it
Yeah.
or whatever.
yeah.
Anyways, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest. Well deserved. You had a
Thank
busy
you.
day. Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you
right,
all.
bye.
Okay. Good night.